The arrest of Jesus confirms the exact opposite messianic behavior than that of the Jewish expectation. His disciples had been plenty warned by him of the arrest itself and even the execution to come. But when you give your life to follow who you think is the savior of your persecuted nation politically, that warning doesn't rest in your conscience easily. Now, Peter, having already tried to stand out twice that day, and falling asleep beside the man he said he'd die for, makes the brilliant choice to slice an ear off one of those coming to arrest, whom Jesus had prophesied was going to do so. A common misconception, by the way, is that Romans came to arrest, but it was the Jewish servants under the high priest Caiaphas. And here's what my friend pointed out at Bible study the other day. If you're like me and obsessed with Bible study this much, it's not every day you hear a unique point. He was saying how the high priest's servant cut off the high priest's servant's ear. If you've ever read Hebrews, you know it makes the point that Jesus is the innocent high priest from heaven's eternity past, sanctified in every way, even after being exposed and vulnerable as we are. His home is the Holy of Holies. Most priests, they'd only go in that one time a year, if it was their turn, and they'd have a rope tied to their ankle in case they would stray in any way from purity. And because being in the presence of God, they would die and have to be pulled out. But Jesus, he is from the Holy of Holies himself. So talk about a high priest dwelling in the holiest places, who makes a sacrifice. That's why Jesus is called a high priest himself, the high priest. And so, technically, Peter is Jesus' servant. And so, Peter is the high priest's servant, the ultimate high priest's servant. And he cuts off the ear of another high priest's servant, only that servant was Caiaphas' servant, the earthly high priest, if you will. And so you have a high priest servant cutting off the ear of a high priest servant. And I think that's just an interesting picture. I don't know if it gives us any messaging, but it's an interesting point that they are technically under the same role by title in a way that is fair to articulate. I think it goes to show that, like so many roles and rules from the Old Covenant, they picture Jesus and his need to make a sacrifice for us. Peter was attacking the servant of one modeling the sacrifice Jesus would need to bear himself. Now, if Peter had known that, he would have let it be carried out, and he didn't even need to understand it if he had just listened and understood that he, his master, desired to go forth and be arrested. He understood that that was what needed to happen. So I think this just means for us that we need to listen, and even when we don't understand, obey the implications of what our master, God, is telling us. Maybe that goes for scripture. Maybe you don't understand the why of a certain rule or a certain exhortation towards us. But we listen nonetheless because God knows better. That's all I have to say. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day.